Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Deciphering My Experience. My name is Eric, and today I guess we're going to talk about semantics and words and what they mean and how meanings change and what that has for pertinence to us contemporarily. I was wondering if anybody happened to have a chance to see there was a movie released called Out of the Shadows. It was a very excellent expose on what's been going on behind the scenes, the accusations of what's going on in Hollywood, the Pizzagate stuff, I guess you would say, and the history of the programs that support such activities. I happened to be waiting the second for that film to drop because I was anticipating it to be so good, and it was. It really delivered. I think it's very good for folks that have not really delved deep into the topic yet. It really touches on a lot of really good content. It doesn't, back up so much of what it says, but I happen to know that it is true and it is referenceable, so it's very nice that they presented it accordingly. So I would recommend folks take a look at that Out of the Shadows video that just jumped onto the internet. But the reason that I'm getting into that topic, as usual, is they were touching on the MK Ultra topic and Operation Paperclip, and that is very much part of my work. So additionally, this week we had another new term thrown into the mix from the Q drops, which, I'm not a big Q adherent, so to say. It's just something that's on my radar. It's contemporary information, it's intel. They're certainly a faction. They're a team, and every team gets to, add to the mix in this big game. So, am I a Q believer? Yeah, insofar as they're a team that's in the game. But as far as the rest of the stuff going around, it's as unsubstantiated as a lot of other teams' propaganda. So, we'll just watch the game and see how it plays out in that capacity. But regardless, in one of the drops this week, we came with a new term, MK_active, and that obviously jumped right out at me. Being a student of the MK Ultra program, it struck me as concerning. MK Ultra, if you're not familiar, is a very dark project that's been bounced around from department to department and operated under many different titles. We have right up here just a few of them. MK Naomi, MK Delta, MK Search, MK Often, and MK Chickwit. The information that I've presented previously shows very clearly that human experimentation was part of these programs. The idea was to cover mind control on an individual level, always with the goal of being able to do it on a more massive scale. Everything in these departments is always about scaling up. So, changing the names and changing the titles, making it hard to follow the trail, and it's par for the course. We've seen this with other projects where, the government doesn't want people to know what is really going on. So they change the money trail, they change the department. A lot of folks don't want to think that our government can be up to such nefarious things against its own people. But we have a history of that as well. If you look into things like Operation Northwoods, which was during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and a lot of people know that the plans were drawn up and that the United States was going to basically create a false flag event on our own soil. And many people think that just this was put to paper and discussed. But my research has shown that not only was this discussed, this plan was actually moving forwards. It was approved and moving forwards until they got the second batch of intel and they found out that Plan A was not going to be able to happen fast enough. So it's not that Operation Northwoods wasn't going to occur, wasn't moving forwards. It was just that that plan was effectively too slow. Killing Americans at the time wasn't going to be the most expedient way to get the mission accomplished, so they just had to come up with something different. That's all. We also have the Gulf of Tonkin event, which brought us into the Vietnam War and has since been declassified as not occurring. So again, the pretense is there for our government to fib to us for their better purposes. Another lesser known point in history was the 6 Days War, where we had the U.S.S. Liberty, which was attacked by Israeli forces for many, many hours. And a lot of people don't know this story, but very worth looking up. Remember the Liberty is the battle cry of the crew, because they were a forgotten attack. The captain of that ship received the Medal of Honor in private. They didn't even discuss his actions publicly for what happened on that day. But I've met crew from that boat, and it's a very rich part of history. I suggest you take a look at the U.S.S. Liberty and the 6 Days War. But back to MK Ultra and what's been going on as of late. You know, the semantics of these terms here. Is it MK Naomi? Is it MK Delta? Is it MK Ultra? Well, in 1975, the Church Committee dug up MK Ultra, and by dug up, it was just what was left. And the paperwork trail could not confirm the death of this program. So we need to really consider that MK Ultra, by some definition, is potentially still around. Was that intel drop the other day the MK active? Was that an indicator? I don't know. Time will tell. But in these trying times, we need to be very careful of words and their usage and their modification, because I would suggest that your term for quarantine has been modified. And if you don't start paying attention to what I would call your freedoms, things might get a little bit crazier for you folks. So I would really welcome people to consider the idea of control. You know, I am comfortable using the term mind control because I can look at the big picture and not think of it as a laser beam beaming into my head, but I can understand the manipulations of masses by the intents of minority groups. So the lesser seems to be dangling a very effective carrot right now, and a lot of people are following that lead, and it's very interesting to me because I clearly see it as a control mechanism. And I'm challenging you folks to take your blinders off, stop battling with semantics, pay attention to what's going on in the world around you in reality. Use your own words and challenge what's being presented to you. Don't get into a battle of semantics, and pay attention to what is actually going on and respond accordingly with your own thoughts, and be in charge of your life, take charge of the world around you, and help empower others to do the same. Do not be an obstacle to somebody else's freedom, and support people in their choices to be free. Thank you very much, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day.